We'll start. Sean, as we're going to start recording this call. I guess we'll just go now. All right, Gavin, thank you for being here tonight. We're excited to focus on learning how social media can impact a player's everyday life and just social media experiences in general, safety, and then implications on their next steps as college students and athletes. A little bit about Gavin is we saw him in New York and his presentation at the PTR, which is the Professional Tennis Registry Women's Coaching Symposium, was fantastic. And we thought it would be a great topic to bring to our players. Gavin is part of the Apex teaching staff and has worked at other clubs and programs in the greater Portland area. Prior to moving to Maine, he taught in Philadelphia and in Winter Park, Florida, and has worked with beginners to national players, world ranked players, earning himself a full range of teaching and coaching experiences. So we're really lucky to have him. He's a USPTA elite professional and a PTR professional with specialty certifications in performance coaching. He has coached 4 different Maine high school teams, boys and girls, to the quarter state finals, and has coached several top 10 players in the state singles tournament. While serving in Apex with all level players, sorry, my notes got scrambled here, apologies. Gavin has further consolidated his expertise in developing elite juniors in line for Division I, II, and Division III college experience. And all right, everyone's in. Gavin, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. So hi, everyone. So we're going to talk a little about social media in general. I'm going to use Instagram as the primary platform that I'm showing and talking about, just because I know TikTok is a huge space, but right now, at least in the world of tennis, whether it's at the professional level, college level, Instagram's kind of the leading social media platform. So just a little of my background in terms of social media, and then also kind of where I'm at right now within this space. So I was not a huge social media user prior to 2019. I got involved with Wilson's Global Social Ambassador Program in 2019, and started doing social media with Wilson, and started an account and had pretty decent growth. Right now I'm just under 50,000 followers. So I've kind of had to learn the platforms through my work with Wilson and some other brands. But kind of a personal project has really come in the world of player safety on social media. I've been lucky enough to, the past few months, work with a couple women in the top 10 in the world, as well as a couple others who were playing at different professional levels around player safety on social media, gathering experiences and trying to make some of this more well-known. The day after I presented in New York, Caroline Garcia made some of the mail or messages she's been getting public, just kind of bringing some more light to some of the abuse that players go through on social media. So I think this is a topic that's starting to get a lot more attention, which I'm quite happy about. So anyway, let's kind of get into the meat of this thing. So I want to talk kind of about, in general, what social media can do for us as tennis players, what social media can do for us in the college recruiting process, or just the brand sponsorship side of things, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. And then some of the ways we can better stay safe on social media. So when it comes to social media accounts like Instagram, it's very important to have an understanding of what it is you're trying to put forward and what its purpose is. So if you're having an account that's really about your life, whatever that happens to look like. That's probably an account that you don't want popping up or being perused as potential coaches are looking at you. So I highly recommend for everyone, if your account is not private, definitely have a private account. Unless you are very intentionally trying to market yourself or put yourself out into the public space, all of your accounts, keep them private, and I wouldn't have followers on there that you don't know exactly who they are. And I'll get into some horror stories a little later, from juniors as well as some touring pros. So one of the things, if you are going to use social media as part of your tennis, is to think about what it is you want to show and what the purpose of showing that is. So one of the things that I've kind of been happy about, if you look at some of the best junior players in the world, they have a very limited social media footprint until they're required to. So a lot of these players, whether they're elite juniors who are on full sponsorships or these top ranked pro players on sponsorships, have clauses within their contracts that require a certain type of social media presence. So a lot of these players cannot choose to not be on social media. They have to. Some of, if you took a look through the ITF top 10 on juniors, you would see fairly limited social presence up until a point, and that usually coincides with when a bigger sponsorship agreement, whether it's with a racket brand or a clothing brand, came into existence. When I'm looking at social media accounts of top Division I prospects, I run into one of two types of accounts. I either see an account that has virtually nothing, or an account that has a very heavy tennis footprint. And both of those are great. It depends on if the player is going to rely on their social media to get on the radar of college coaches, or if they're really using more of their results and tournament history to get on the radar of college coaches. So I want to share on my phone screen here. Let's take a look at Instagram. I'll pull it up on my phone. Okay, so in a minute, we're going to walk through some safety settings on Instagram. Let's get that out of the way. But before we do that, let's just take a look at a couple accounts. And I have 3 accounts that I've pulled up to take a look at. So 2 of these people I know. This person I don't. I just know the account. So here is a top-ranked junior. She's 13, blue chip recruit. So she is a top Division I prospect. She's playing at a fairly high level, and we can see that her account is primarily geared towards drawing attention to her tennis. So we have results photo, so something showing trophies, some training photos. But if we look at when this started, June 2022, and it's at the Easter Bowl talking about a result. So this account's really starting at the time this player started to have some decent results. Here's another junior. So here we have someone that is not playing at as high of a level. But this is someone who's utilizing her social media presence to be able to have some opportunities with brands that her ranking may not afford. So as we see here in her information, she actually is represented by an agency, and then sponsored by Yonex, and has a mix of different content that helps give some social media presence to that brand. So that leads us into, before I get to this third account, that leads us into the first thing that social media can potentially do for you as a player. So there's a couple ways that, if you're trying to get access to brands, that can happen. And the best and biggest way is, of course, through results. Brands want to work with players that are nationally ranked, sectionally ranked, and want to help those players on their journeys. But what I see a lot with players, whether it's juniors or players in the 7, 8, 900 in the world range that are not getting the same type of brand access, is that they're able to create a good social media presence with a good follower base in order to attract brands and be able to create brand deals that they are not able to gain access to through their tennis ranking. But that comes with a lot of risk as well, because in order to create a large social media presence, you have to have a lot of engagement, which means people have to be interacting with your content. So, excuse me. For example, if I pull up just some raw metrics, and I should say, as a tennis influencer, I'm probably pretty bad at this. I kind of do it on the side just for fun. I'm the head pro at a club here in Portland and on court like 40 hours a week. So I'm not interacting with followers as much as I probably should be if I wanted my growth to be beyond what it is. But if you're interested in that side of it, where you're trying to gain brand deals, taking a look at just raw metrics. Okay, what are you getting for views? What percentage are your followers versus non-followers? How are you gaining traction? Where are they from? So on and so forth. All of that contributes to this social media footprint that can be attractive to brands who might want to work with an influencer in that tennis space. Where this becomes kind of dangerous, especially for juniors, is the most common type of interaction that happens on Instagram is going to be negative. When you have accounts interacting with you that you do not know, it is more likely that there's going to be negative comments than there are positive ones. And this can look like a lot of different things. So one story that comes to mind is junior player out in California has a brand deal with one of the top 3 racket brands. Has that brand deal through social media presence, not through tournament history and rankings. And another junior that she trains with became very jealous and created a hate account. It was her name stinks at tennis, and the account was solely devoted to bullying this girl. Now, luckily, her account was not run by her. She's 13. Her parents ran the account for her, so she didn't actually know about this hate account that came into existence. But it turns out it was actually a girl who's supposedly her best friend that was doing this. So, we get these types of extremes where there's bullying from within a community that you have knowledge of. But then we have the whole other side of it where it's just trolls out there in the greater internet that have nothing better to do than try to bring someone down. This happens a lot at the professional level. Like I said, Caroline Garcia made this pretty prominent. So we'll take a look at this. So Caroline Garcia put this up during the first week of the US Open, and these are just some direct quotes that were sent to her. So players that have, pardon the language on that one, players that have world ranking, that have high visibility, are subject to this type of hate. But we also see it on social media actually in higher volumes outside of the top world ranked players. Players who are competing in ITF tournaments, there's a lot of betting. When it's at the professional level, there's a lot of betting. When players have good results, they often will get very, very hate-filled messages because they cause someone to lose money. When a player has a bad result, they will often get very hate-filled messages because they cause someone to lose money. You have the type of harassment that has to do with body image. Body image harassment is probably the biggest type of harassment that I've seen through. I guess to give this some further context, we did quite a bit of research going into that initial presentation in New York, and as we develop a larger 3-hour course around social media safety. So we surveyed quite a few players in this, and outside of like the top level where they're not even running their own Instagrams, like if you've ever messaged Arena Sabalenka, she's not running that Instagram account. She probably doesn't even have sign-in access on that Instagram account. She pays someone to run that Instagram, which is a safety precaution. But when we're talking to people who are running their own Instagram accounts, and especially people that might have high follower counts, that's time check. All right, that's something we're gonna talk about a little later. Turn that off for now. Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought then. That messed me up. When we're looking at people that have higher follower counts, they're very present within the greater social media community as tennis influencers. There is a lot of commenting and messages that are happening regarding body image, whether it's sexual harassment or body shaming. This is a fairly prevalent thing, especially for female players, although male players are subject to it as well. So one of the biggest pieces that we've started to work on is making sure that athletes know how to stay safe on social media. Well, at least as safe as they can. If you want to stay safe on social media, don't have social media. That is by far the best advice I can give someone, as hypocritical as it is as someone who works in the social media space. But I want to show you a couple things that you can do on your own accounts that everyone should do to help stay a little safer. And then we'll take a more positive turn towards the end before I get to questions that people may have, and talk about how you can use your social media presence, as this is geared towards college recruiting, how you can use your social media presence to help in the college process. Okay, so Meta has done a decent job. The parent company of Instagram has done a decent job, and that might be a little too nice to them. There's a lot more they can do, but to add some safety stuff. So let's start at one of the most simple things that exists, and that's time management. So as you can see here, my daily average on Instagram is about 49 minutes, and that's because I have my timer set for 60 minutes. I have, when it's on, I put my daily limit on, and my phone, once it gets to that 60 minutes, it'll say your time is up. And then I'm done. I could, of course, choose to turn it off, but I'm not going to. And I would say the majority for me of that is spent in messages. I post content daily, whether it's content for Wilson or just coaching tips, but I probably spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes in the creation of that content within the app. Most of that 50 minutes I spend answering messages that I get, usually questions about equipment or some greater tennis related question. But I guarantee that prior to turning this on, I spent more than 2 to 3 hours on Instagram, and a large part of that was scrolling. Now, if I was to go to my home screen, the majority of the content that filters in, the accounts that I follow are all tennis based, but I watch a lot of cute animal videos. I love my cat videos. I love my dog videos. That they pretty much dominate my feed. And I would spend 2 hours watching whatever husky videos have flooded my screen if I could. That's because the algorithm knows that's what I like to look at. So, what is an algorithm? The algorithm, or the programming that helps stream content into your phone that Instagram thinks you want to see, uh, is based on what you look at and the accounts you follow. So if Instagram notices as you're scrolling that you paused on this video of, I don't know, a cat doing whatever for 30 seconds, but everything else you didn't spend more than 2 or 3 seconds on, it's going to start inserting more of that type of content. So if you are scrolling and there's something, it could be anything. It could be a certain type of photo, it could be a certain type of caption, it could be a certain type of video. But if you spend a little more time on it than you do other things on average, the algorithm's going to start pumping more of that into your homepage, even if it's accounts that you don't follow. And what we've seen happen, and I use we as the greater research community around social media, is that teenagers on social media spend an adverse amount of time there, more time than is good at all, and it does have fairly severe adverse psychological effects. So one of the easiest things that you could possibly do is set yourself a daily limit. All right, so I just clicked off a few moments ago because it was going to kick me off, and we need it for my presentation. But figuring out what that length of time is that's okay for you, and really trying to limit how much you're on social media. Okay, let's look at some other things. Account privacy. So this is where we talked about whether we want our accounts to be something that everyone can see or not, and the pros and cons of that. So if I'm using my account to try to get on the radar of college coaches or brands or whatever, it needs to be a public account. Outside of that, I can't recommend strongly enough having your account to private. This is my business account. I do have a private account that I go on like once every 5 years or something. I don't even know why it still exists. But that is private. I'm not accepting a single friend request on there from anyone that I do not know. So it is largely limited to my family members. So unless you're using your account for brand access or to create a public profile, highly recommend turning your account to private. All right. How others can interact with you. This is a super important and useful section within your settings. So here you can manage who is able to message you, who can add you to group chats. Once you get into messages, there's what are called blocked words. This is a newer setting where you can type in buzzwords that if someone includes those, the message is going to be filtered out. One of the players that I've spent a little more time talking to, a top 100 player, she does not have a brand requirement to have a social media presence. She likes it because she likes interacting with people. But she has an extremely heavily filtered message system, which is really, really good. Pretty much anytime someone gets a hate message through it, she figures out what words she needs to add so she's not being flooded with things like that. Story replies. All right, so again, this is my business account. I do a lot of posting for Wilson. I need to allow story replies. Highly recommend that you don't allow story replies on a public account. Caroline Dollhide is a wonderful example. If you follow Caroline at all, fantastic player, has had some fantastic results in singles and doubles this year. This is something she has turned off. You cannot reply to her story. She's one of the few pro players that has that turned off. I'm assuming she manages her own account. And I love that she has that turned off. I think that's a really good thing. I believe Katie Bolter has a pretty secured account. She uses a social media manager, but I like a lot of her safety settings as well. Activity status, read receipts. I usually like to, again, unless you're using your account for business, I usually like to not have people know when you are online. It makes it, when they see that little green dot next to your name, it makes it easy for someone to be not too nice in the messages. All right, so hidden words is one I about. Nope, not working on the screen. But hopefully it says I've on the share. Words is a to filter what messages are to be to you, and um, hopefully some that or hate filled or thing or anything of that nature. So just spending a little time within these settings, you can do a lot to be able to have a more public presence on Instagram, but also try to keep yourself as safe as possible. And that leads us to being a little cognizant of time, to how can you use Instagram to your benefit, or other social media platforms to your benefit, as you move through your tennis journey, whether it's interacting with brands or looking to play college tennis and trying to get on the radar of a college coach. So so PK is a player. She trained at IMG Academy. She's a freshman at Yale. This is a great example of an account where she also does some modeling. So here, if we look at pin, so what are the things that she wants the people who arrive at her profile to see? That she is committed to play tennis at Yale. This is good. She's advertising an accomplishment of hers, but also if other prospective coaches are scrolling and find her, it says, hey, I've agreed to play at this school. This was during her recruiting process. So here, she is doing a collaboration post that's highlighting some of her achievements, what her UTR is, what number she is in the recruiting class, what number she is in the state of Florida. And this would have been updated when she committed to Yale. And then here, celebrating a victory. She got a silver ball, the girls 18s at Winter Nationals. Again, this is one of those ones that had this gone up before, verbal commitment, good at getting the attention of a coach. And then she also does some modeling. So she's sponsored by Dunlop. She works with that brand. So we have some brand sponsored posts. So what we have is a player that kind of hits a best of both worlds in terms of looking at social media. I'm going to stop this screen share from my phone. A player who hits the best of both worlds in terms of social media, where she has strong results. She's high enough in the recruiting class that she's going to end up on the radar of coaches, but she's a 5-star recruit, not necessarily a blue chip recruit. So she also might have to hustle a little depending on what type of program she wants to play for. So when you're starting to engage in that college recruitment process, and if you're emailing coaches or coaches are interacting with you, it's pretty safe to assume they are going to look you up on social media. And what they find could potentially pique their interest in one of two ways. As a coach, you don't want a player that's going to be problematic for your program. So if a coach is looking through that social media presence and there's a bunch of pictures highlighting things that a player probably shouldn't be doing at their age, or even if it's things that they're legally allowed to be doing, but might not be great for a team, that social media presence, despite a player's results, could point a coach to look in a different direction. On the other side, when a coach, okay, I got a message from whoever on my email, they're interested in my program, let's look them up, check them out on Instagram. Oh, wow, look at these training videos. Uh, they're putting all the hard work in. Oh, that's not a bad forehand. That's not oh, look at that point. That's a fun point to watch. Okay, I'm going to take the time to watch whatever videos that they have up there. So you really can use your presence on social media to pique the interest of coaches as long as the account is done well. So to bring that all kind of back together, and I want to make sure we have time for questions before I have to be back on court teaching. If you're going to be present on social media in a public presence, I highly recommend using it for your advantage, whether it's to try to interact with brands and maybe get some brand opportunities that are beyond what your ranking is, or to get on the radar of prospective coaches that you might want to play for their schools. That said, to have that public presence, it comes with that risk of interaction where in order to grow your brand, and that's what it is, right? When you have a public presence on social media, you are a brand. You have to have engagement, and to have engagement, it means you have to be interacting with other accounts, and that has a number of potentially negative repercussions. So I highly, highly recommend engaging with some of those basic safety features on the social platforms, and limiting at least the amount of potential negative content that can send your way. So I think that is where I'd love to open it to any questions that have come in or that anyone has.
Gavin, I have a quick question for you, and I've heard this too. Have you had, working with athletes, have you had college coaches reach out to you and say, ask and inquire about a player based on what they've seen on social media?
Yes, I have. At all different levels, absolutely. In fact, let's see, what's today? Today's Wednesday. So yeah, I got an email from a coach on Sunday about a player that I work with who's in the recruitment process right now.
Right. Yeah, I feel like we have similar conversations, and we've had college coaches say to us, "Oh, you know what? I've looked at their social media. I've taken them off my list because some of the things that you had just mentioned, which can be obviously a detriment that I don't think a lot of players understand, having grown up in this social media age. It's much different now, and I don't think the players fully understand the repercussions of it."
No, and I'll take that a step further to well first of all, in the coach reaching out thing, just to think about, by the way, what that means is this person looked at this player's recruiting profile, they saw where they trained, they Googled where they trained, they figured out who they trained with from the website, and then reached out. So that coach had to take some time to figure out who they even wanted to reach out to. But even beyond that, I've had to fire summer camp staff in the past who are young adults, early 20s, because of their social media presence. And even though they weren't doing anything that was necessarily illegal, it also wasn't the face of that particular summer camp program, that parents didn't want to see that this is a type of person that is either living with or teaching their child. So having a well thought social media presence isn't the worst idea. Okay, is it ever a detriment to have no social media presence during recruitment? No, it is 100% not a detriment. I think there's pros and cons to anything. I have worked with another player I'm working with right now who's gotten some pretty good interest. He does not have social media, never has. I love that. I would say that if that player was trying to work with a brand, yes, that wouldn't be possible. His ranking isn't high enough. Usually to get like brand deals, you need to have very high national ranking. But social media presence can sometimes outweigh that for brands. So players that have no national ranking are still getting brand deals like they did because of social media presence. So that's where I think, you know, having the social media can be more helpful. But in terms of like a coach wanting to engage, no. They might even find that refreshing that, all right, this is a person that I don't necessarily have to worry about being on social media.
All great points, all good questions.
Any other questions?
Okay. Well, Gavin, thank you so much for being here tonight and this really wonderful presentation. As we mentioned, we recorded it for everyone, so we'll be sending it out in our follow-up emails and in our junior newsletter. So if anybody wants to recap or revisit any of the points, they certainly can. And Gavin, we wish you the best of luck with your night and your on court work you have left to do. So thanks so much for taking some time away from that and being with UST New England. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Gavin.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.